Part of clearing these blockages is first becoming aware that they're there. Some of you may be familiar with the term shadow work. This term means to make the unconscious conscious. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. It includes any process or practice that makes you aware of the unconscious and which brings about the integration of unconsciousness. It's taking what you're unaware of, because it's stored in your unconscious mind, and bringing it out into the light, thus making you aware/conscious of it. It's only when you're aware of a problem that you can actually do something about it. The lower energies of pain, fear, and anger create these shadows, and as long as they remain in the unconscious, they create blocks in our energy system. If left unchecked, they can wreak havoc on our physical, mental, and emotional health, as well as our relationships, continuing our suffering. Everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. If an inferiority is conscious, one always has the chance to correct it. Furthermore, it is constantly in contact with other interests, so that it is continually subjected to modifications. But if it is repressed and isolated from consciousness, it never gets corrected. This concept of the shadow self was first coined by Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung. The shadow self describes those aspects of the personality that we choose to reject and repress, and those parts of us get stored in the unconscious psyche and our mental body as negative karma. Carl Jung referred to this as, quote, shadow, because we're unaware of these rejected parts of our personality. According to Jung's theory, we distance ourselves psychologically from those behaviors, emotions, and thoughts that we find dangerous or unlovable. And rather than confronting it, our mind pretends it simply doesn't exist. The shadow self often begins to develop in early childhood, even going as far back as infancy, which would be another reason why we are unaware. This is because we're the most, quote, programmable when we're very young. So when we're told by our caregiver that something we're doing is unacceptable, especially when it's repeated to us and or comes with a punishment, we believe it. In the months between infancy and toddler, the shadow self can begin to form when our needs aren't met. A belief can form that we're not worthy of having our needs met and that we must be unlovable. And the more often our needs are ignored, the more this belief is reinforced and the more we reject and repress. As we grow out of the toddler stage, we begin to develop a need for our caregiver's approval. An attachment between approval and love can start to form. So when a caregiver rejects something about us, we feel the need to also reject and repress this aspect in order to gain the caregiver's approval and love. You can also see this in societies as well. A society, for whatever reason, decides something is unacceptable, and anyone participating in that unacceptable thing gets ridiculed, shunned, and sometimes even worse. This all rolls back to survival, needing the approval/safety of the community in order to survive. All of this energy sits in our root chakra, but I'll get into that more in the root chakra lesson. We don't always take the time to stop and consider that an unmet need or desire in our childhood created a snowball effect that resulted in us turning to the, quote, dark side as an adult, feeling stuck and powerless to change because we're unaware. Because we're unaware of these rejected aspects of ourselves, we can develop tendencies to harshly and unfairly judge others, point out other people's flaws and insecurities, exhibit bullying behavior, victim blame and shame, form unacknowledged biases and prejudices and destructive stereotypes, be perfectionistic, and refuse to admit when we're wrong. Unfortunately, our impulse to avoid the unpleasant confrontation with the truth is so strong that we remain completely unaware of what's happening. The mind ignores and buries all evidence of our shortcomings to protect itself, i.e., to prevent the experience of pain, storing it deep within our unconscious mind. This doesn't make those thoughts, memories, and emotions go away, but it does put them somewhere we don't have to, quote, see them. Some people are motivated to go through the stages of shadow work with the goal of being a better person on the other side. This is all well and good, but for the purpose of this course, the motivation is healing with the goal to grow into our whole self. Jung insists that the true aim is not to defeat the shadow self, but to incorporate it with the rest of the personality. It is only through this merging that true wholeness can be attained, and what it is, that is enlightenment. A Course in Miracles says, "Only loving thoughts are true, and everything else is a cry for help and healing." Just because our shadows are stored in the unconscious doesn't mean they aren't showing themselves to us. You might liken it to a ghost. They're there, but invisible to our eyes, so they do things to get our attention. A ghost might move something, or make the air around them feel cold, or flicker the lights. Our shadows try to get our attention through our triggers, projections, repeating patterns, introspections. Example, why does blank trigger a pain, anger, fear response? Where does it come from? And cues in the body. Example, a sinking feeling in your stomach or a painful spasm in your back. As you begin to inquire into your pain, it will begin to reveal the beliefs, fears, and memories that it's representing. Whether or not you have access to the exact root of that trauma, you can still begin to heal it simply by allowing yourself to feel it.